Hello everybody, this is Nathan Fletcher. I am the Drunk Philosopher. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the fallout we're seeing 50 years later from the equality movements of the 60s. Now this is not to say that they weren't valid, they weren't good, because it was fantastic that everybody came under the same laws and had the same, at least the same reasonable equivalence in opportunity, equality of opportunity, I should say. One thing that nobody took into account was the fact that there were going to be women who, up to that stage, and yes, unfairly, had been judged as the fairer, or let's be realistic, the weaker sex. Nobody had taken into consideration that women, on average, were, in the median effect of the IQ anyway, were a lot more constant than the men. So there is actually, on average, far more moderately intelligent women. Okay, then that's great, because you need, it's often said that the man is a bit of a firecracker. You know, if Homer Simpson didn't have Marge Simpson to be that kind of the restraint, I'm sure Homer, even though he's a cartoon character, would have died years ago, but I've got plenty of mates who are the hold my beer type until their missus goes, no, you're not doing that, Simon. No, leave the Jellignite alone, Simon. You know, good missus. I mean, you're not going to let him go near this Jellignite. Poor Simon. Women don't have a sense of fun. But this is the thing. Women are, on average, as smart as men. If not a bit smarter, a bit wiser. You've got to remember that men on the curve, actually, okay, yes, the top, say, 5% of men are going to be the smartest people in the world, but the bottom 5% of the most dumbest people on this earth are going to also be men. So women are sort of in the middle. And what people didn't take into account is, whilst physically it's true that on average a woman will not be as strong as a baseline male, making them the weaker sex, especially in the agrarian sort of era that we've come out of, the farming life that we've come out of, where the men did all the hard work. I'm not saying that women didn't work hard, but you know, the heavy lifting labour, okay, was largely done by the men, and the women would do the washing and mill the flour and things like this. And there's nothing wrong with that. It was still hard work. I don't want anyone to get the impression that I take a damn thing away from those women. They worked hard. But we were coming out of that agrarian lifestyle. And so we were still judging things on physical prowess, I think, to a large degree. Men were still working the mines with the pickaxes, and women were, you know, making dresses or being a secretary, while the big man, you know, chomped on a cigar and made big business decisions. Well, it turns out that when it comes to intelligence, yeah, women are up there with men. Of course they are. And in fact, at the moment, if we look at education, they're doing a lot better than men in education. They're doing a lot better than men in university, and therefore, you know, jobs like teaching and things like that, they are now the majority of teachers, they're the majority of nurses, they're the majority of doctors, or if not the majority, sorry, they're getting close to the majority. I think it's 47% from memory. That's from memory, don't quote me. I may be wrong. Things change quickly in this wonderful world of ours. So, what I'm trying to get at is, we didn't think of that. Nobody thought of that. And now, we all know the tyrannical male exists. Okay, we've had the tyrannical male through history. King Henry VIII, tyrannical male. Ivan the Terrible, tyrannical male. Genghis Khan, tyrannical male. Julius Caesar. You know, the list goes on, because men have been because they're especially in agrarian societies and societies where might made right, which was pretty much the first nearly probably 6,000 to 7,000 years of our civilizations, collectively speaking, might made right, so therefore it made sense that men were in charge of everything. But what about the tyrannical woman? Because if we say, well, men, we know about the tyrannical men, but what about the tyrannical woman? Women are just as smart, and there are going to be those women who are going to be just as much, have a lust for power, and have a lust for control. And we've seen them over the ages. We've seen glimpses of these tyrannical women. We've got Catherine the Great in Russia. Millions of lives that were lost there. We've got Queen Elizabeth I, and she had to make sure that her throne wasn't usurped, so she kept her cousin, Mary, the Queen of Scots, in the Tower of London until she died. But what about Countess Bathory? She was a blood tyrant. Queen Isabel of Spain in the Spanish Inquisition, and the Moors. What about Blood Queen, Queen of, I think it was Blood Queen Mary, Queen of Blood. So we sort of forgot that women can be tyrannical too, and because the whole thing of men are more strong than women coming out of the agrarian ages of the past few thousand years, we're now in a situation where men specifically think of women as the weaker sex, okay, and it's been taught, yes, and it's wrong because in a physical sense it's right, but in a mental sense it's wrong. In an emotional sense it's very wrong. And we need to get out of that mindset. We need to stop thinking of women as weak intellectually. Okay, yes, on average weaker physically, although I still wouldn't like to go Ronda Rousey. I think she'd kick my ass. But generally speaking, women are weaker physically, but not weaker mentally. That needs to disappear, because what I'm starting to see is people like Sarah Hanson Young coming up, and I don't want you to take me the wrong way. I don't think she's going to be Countess Bathory. But she is using her sex to get political leverage and power. She's saying everything is sexist in the halls of the federal parliament, even though she's one of the heads of her party, the Greens Party in Australia. She has institutional power with a vote in the Senate, which is more power than most Australians will ever see. She's certainly getting, I think it's $250,000 a year, plus the airs and graces that a standing senator gets. She has a hell of a lot of power. She earns a hell of a lot of money, but everything's sexist. Well, what's sexist about it? Well, from what I can see, everything that's sexist is the fact she doesn't have enough power. And if Sarah Hanson Young was doing this as a male and saying, oh, everyone's bullying me, nobody would give them the time of day. Oh, you weak-ass little shit, rah, rah, rah. Once again, men are strong, women are weak, and that whole thing. It needs to change. Now, once again, I'm not suggesting Sarah Hanson Young's Countess Bathory, but I think that her motives as a politician are about power. And I think Angela Merkel's the same. And I think Theresa May was the same, is the same now. I think that Margaret Thatcher was the same. And no one's really thinking about the tyrannical female figure. Okay? Absolute power corrupts absolutely. And that is regardless of what you've got between your legs or what you think you've got between your legs. Okay? That's irrespective of what the colour of your skin is. And we've got to start treating people, okay, male and female, it's dimorphic. Females on average are weaker physically, but that speaks nothing of mental acuity. Okay? So we need to start thinking about the possibility of female tyranny and start calling that out as much as we call out male tyranny. In fact, we should just call out all tyranny, irrespective of where it comes from. I'm Nathan Fletcher. I am the Drunk Philosopher. And I'll catch you next time. Uru.